The MRO notifies, verifies the test results, interprets, discusses, reviews. The MRO contacts the employee if determined valid medical reason exists for a positive. So now they've got a positive result. That doesn't mean they just tested it once and poof, they have a positive, so now the driver's screwed. That's not how that works. So the MRO, the doctor, who is trained specifically to do this, calls the employee. That's why it's very important that drivers, and you'd let your drivers know, to put a valid phone number on these chain of custody forms that they're actually going to answer, and let them know, hey, if you get a call from an unknown number in the next 3 or 4 days, make sure you answer it, because if you don't answer it, you're going to have problems. Make sure that they know to answer those calls, or at least call them right back, because a lot of people screen their calls, and if they don't know the number, they just don't answer it. Make sure your driver understands that they need to be answering calls at least in the next 3 or 4 days from unknown numbers. Of course, when it's safe, not when they're driving. So the MRO will interview that driver. If they have a valid reason, then they don't have to do anything further. The driver will talk to the MRO. The driver will say, well, I'm on prescription medication, yada, yada, yada. And the MRO might say, who's your doctor? I need to contact them to verify that this prescription was done by them. And that's what they do. They follow up on that. They contact the other doctor. So just because you tell the MRO, I'm on a prescription for Tylenol with codeine, doesn't mean he's going to believe you. He still follows up with your doctor who prescribed it. If no valid reason has been found, so what if the driver doesn't answer the phone? What if the MRO can't reach the driver? What if the MRO calls the doctor and the doctor says, I didn't prescribe that driver any opioids? Then at that point, the MRO then does a split sample. So at that point, the split sample is used. They test it again. Now he already knows that the driver doesn't have a valid reason to be on drugs. So they do a confirmatory test. They take that second vial. Like I said, there's 2 vials. They peed in 1 cup, but they put it in 2 different vials. If it's negative, they only test the 1 vial and then both are done. They're tossed, right? Because negative result. But they keep both vials just in case they have to do that second confirmatory test. A lot of drivers think they get to pee in a cup again. That's not the case. They use the same urine. So they take that second vial, and within 72 hours, the driver's notified that they have to retest, right? They say, you have to retest. Do you want to retest? They don't automatically do it. The driver has to request that the urine be retested. They have to do that. If they don't do that, because it's more expensive, it costs more money, and a lot of times drivers have to pay for that themselves. So it can cost anywhere from, $175 up to $350 sometimes to do a retest. So now the driver has to request that through the collection facility, and they have to say, no, I disagree, I want it retested. So then the MRO gets notified, and they take that second vial, and then they put it through that special machine, the mass spectrometry machine. A split sample is sent to another certified lab of the employee's choice. The employee can say, that doctor, that MRO didn't like me, I want it sent somewhere else, and he can say which facility it goes to. Most of the time they don't, because they don't know which facility, and there is time limits involved here. There's 72 hours. So, but it does go to another MRO, and the MRO confirms the positive result. The employee may be responsible for the costs. Like I said, anytime I had drivers that demanded a retest, we said, okay, you absolutely ask for the retesting, you're going to pay for it. And if it was a random test, if it's found that it is negative, then we'll reimburse you for those costs. Sometimes we don't. It just depends on the company. For pre-employment purposes, anybody that demanded a retest, we said, go ahead and pay for it, then you have to pay for that. Typically, in most cases, I see employees having to pay for that. So we're going to talk about each individual drug. I'm going to show you stuff. I'm going to tell you what it is. And so this is marijuana. Sometimes they call it 420. So if you hear guys talking about 420 all the time, 420 this, 420 that, hey, I can't wait till it's 420. They're not talking about because 420 is a good time of day. They're talking about pot. So that might start raising suspicions. Does it mean you can go do reasonable suspicion testing? No. It just means that you heard him talking about pot. It means nothing. But it might make you want to pay attention to how the driver looks and how the driver's behaving. And once, they go on their break, what do they look like when they come back? Kind of makes you wonder, right? So this is marijuana cigarette, it's, you know, a joint. Here's some different stuff that they put it in. Here's kind of what it looks like. But they also have oil now. So there's CBD, and CBD is legal. There's nothing illegal about CBD, at least not yet. But the problem is that these drivers, even whenever they sell it legally, sometimes it actually has THC in it. The driver thinks that it doesn't have THC in it, and it's just CBD oil, because there are many health benefits to CBD. You know, there's been studies that say CBD, the non-THC CBD, actually have benefits. So that's for other people to decide. So my point is, drivers will take it for back pain or for joint healing or for whatever reason, and they feel like it helps them because it is legal and it does not have THC in it. At least it's not supposed to, but it ends up having THC in it. So here's some facts about marijuana. Marijuana is a dried green or brown leaf, typically smoked in a joint. It can be eaten. You know, they make cookies, gummies, cake. You can put it in anything. I mean, it's a weed. It's a plant. That's what it is. So they can mix it with pretty much anything. Hashish is different. So hash is a brown or black substance, usually in small chunks with a hard gummy textures. Hash is like the residue almost. It's not really actually the residue. It's not like they smoked a bowl and they scraped the bowl with all the black stuff. It's kind of like that, but it's also made a little bit different. They make it out of the leaves. So an estimated 37 million Americans use marijuana. So marijuana and THC. THC is the primary active ingredient in marijuana and hashish. That's the part that gets people stoned, right? Is the THC. THC is quickly absorbed into the bloodstream, reaching the brain within minutes when smoked. THC can be found in the body for up to 46 weeks after use. Sometimes, some people, it's actually 8 weeks. So, but then there's other people, it'll last in their system for like 3 days. So it is stored, THC is stored in the fat cells of a person's body. So the chunkier you are, the longer it's probably going to stay in your system, just FYI. But it has to do with metabolism, fat cells, a bunch of other stuff. Hashish has about 40% potency compared to 10 to 20% potency of the bud flower or weed. So hash is twice as strong as actual regular marijuana or weed. So the physical effects of marijuana include changes in perception due to slight hallucinogenic effect that can create distorted illusion of time and space. So with pot, they're not necessarily like full-on hallucinations, but they can have like psychedelic effects from marijuana. Mood changes leading to euphoria, feelings of energy or state of relaxation, higher heart rate, reduction in blood pressure, impairment of concentration and memory, reduced psychomotor coordination, nausea, even though some cannabinoids may help reduce nausea. So cancer patients who are doing chemotherapy and radiation, they are prescribed pot because it helps them with the nausea. So it affects people differently. And some of these, they actually kind of look like they're contradicting each other. Some people have a totally different effect, but I can see how it can be good for some people if that's the state that it puts them in. Increased appetite, faster breathing. So don't just think that everybody comes in, hey dude, what's up? I'm stoned. And that's how they're going to look. That's not always the case. So just be aware of that. So what to watch out for? Of course, red eyes. Most people know what the stoner eye looks like, or that glossy red eye after smoking pot. Poor muscle coordination, delayed reaction times, increased appetite, sudden shift in mood from tense to relaxed, or opposite, abrupt symptoms of anxiety, panic, hallucinations, the smell. Marijuana has a pretty distinct smell, unless it's in a vape pen, and now they're doing it to where you can't really smell it that much. But if they're smoking from a pipe or something else, it has a pretty distinctive smell, sometimes like a skunk, but catching a whiff of the scent on a person's clothes or hair could be a sign that they're smoking pot, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're the one smoking pot. It just means maybe their grandma has cancer and they spend a lot of time with their grandma and they're at her house and she smokes pot all day long. It might make their clothes smell. So don't just assume. You have to go through the whole process. Cocaine. Let's talk about cocaine. So if you look at this is more like crack cocaine. So this is crack. This is a crack or a meth pipe. The pipes look different. The process is a little bit different. So we're talking about, for this right now, we're going to talk about crack, or, crack cocaine. So cocaine is typically a white powder. It can be snorted, dissolved, injected, or smoked. Crack is a powder cocaine mixed with water and baking soda. So of course they take pure cocaine, or cocaine that's probably already been cut, and then they mix it some more and make crack cocaine. It's heated, and then it forms that rock-like appearance. Typically smoked in a pipe. It's stronger and cheaper, more addictive than straight cocaine. So over 5 million people admit to using cocaine in the past year alone. And this is just in the US. So different things is oral. They can snort it, smoke inhalation, injection. So this is a regular standard cocaine. It's powder form. They either will inject it, they'll snort it, but it's more of a finer powder than, say, the crack would be more of the rock-like. So the cocaine effects, and I show you these pictures not because I'm, the whole purpose I'm showing you these is because when you start seeing little baggies, you might see dollar bills rolled up like this. When you start seeing that, it makes you kind of wonder what else is going on. So look for not just the drug. You're not just looking for the drug. You're looking for the paraphernalia that goes with the drugs, which could be needles, spoons that have burn marks on the bottom, or knives that have burn marks on the bottom. That's for a different kind of drug. But rolled up bills, little baggies like this, pipes. Look for the stuff that goes with them, because very rarely are you going to actually see the drug itself. You're going to see the paraphernalia that goes with it. So here's the effects of cocaine. Short-term physiological effects of cocaine use includes constricted blood vessels, dilated pupils, increased body temperature, heart rate, blood pressure. Long-term effects could be disturbances in heart rhythm, heart attacks, neurological effects, including headaches, seizures, strokes, coma, gastrointestinal complications, rare instances of sudden death. Cocaine-related deaths are often a result of cardiac arrest or seizures, though. So what to watch out for with coke? So coke, cocaine, crack. Dilated pupils, overly talkative, they're pretty excited. They're pretty excitable. Usually dilated pupils, it's an upper. Cocaine, crack is typically an upper. So they're going to be overly talkative, energetic and confident, diminished appetite, sudden shift in mood from relaxed to tense, abrupt symptoms of anxiety or panic, hallucinations, excessive aggression. So one thing to notice with cocaine users is a lot of times you don't notice it in the very beginning. They seem totally normal. They look totally normal. And so if you start noticing your driver and pretty chunky guy, 250 pounds or so, and always eating, kind of slow, walking around doing his thing, minding his own business. And then over the period of, a couple months, you start noticing he just is losing weight, and he's like always go, go, go. And he's kind of going to the bathroom a lot throughout the day. You just notice weird things, and you're like, what is up with John over there? That's what starts making you wonder. You don't just look at somebody and think, oh, you're on coke. That's not how it works. This is meant to be reasonable suspicion. Is meant to be, okay, so you're noticing and observing things over a period of time, and sometimes it is right away. But in most cases, especially with drugs like marijuana or coke or something like that, you're going to kind of notice it over a period of time that they just start acting a little odd or different feeling way. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for those things like that. And in some cases, it is that immediately you just know something is totally off about that guy based on you've interacted with that person several times, and now all of a sudden they're acting a completely different way. That might give you reasonable suspicion. So let's talk about amphetamines. Amphetamine facts. So they affect the central nervous system. They're a stimulant to that central nervous system. They're often prescribed by physicians. It's kind of weird, right? Comes in pill form, powder, tablets, crystals, and capsules. Most common slang names is speed, fast, up, Louie, gooey, whiz. Those are some amphetamines. Amphetamines actually include also MDMA, which is like ecstasy or Molly. So anytime you start hearing about Molly or X or something like that, that's an MDMA. It's still an amphetamine. MDA is Sally or Sass. So they are all of the amphetamine family, but they're different things. They kind of do different things to the body. So with amphetamines, they can swallow them, snort, smoke, inject. There comes in pills. Like I said, they can inject them. They can snort it. Amphetamines are prescribed for ADHD. So if your child has ADHD, sometimes doctors will prescribe amphetamines because it counteracts. People with true ADHD, an amphetamine will actually relax them. And somebody that doesn't have ADHD that takes like Adderall, which is an amphetamine, it keeps them awake. So a lot of times college students they initially get addicted to amphetamines through Adderall or through ADHD medicine because, you know, college kids have to stay up and study and do all that stuff. So a lot of times what you find is that they'll start with Adderall or ADHD to stay awake, to get stuff done like that. And then they'll, of course, after a while, they have to move to meth if they get addicted to it, because Adderall is not easily obtainable if you don't have ADHD. So sometimes amphetamines are prescribed for narcolepsy, obesity as a weight loss supplement, or even depression. So the effects of amphetamines include hyperactivity, restlessness, anxiety, increased respiration, euphoria, insomnia. So that's, you know, being very, what are you doing? What do you got? You know, they're just fast. Everything is fast. It's all hyper. So that's kind of the things that you'll look for. So with amphetamines, the physical effects, now this may be immediate or maybe over time, but this kind of cycle shows you over time what you're looking at. So reduced appetite, which means weight loss, increased blood pressure, increased irregular heartbeat, hyperthermia, dilated pupils. Their pupils will get big, acne, memory loss, psychosis, paranoia. And it kind of goes this cycle of all of these different physical effects that occur whenever somebody's on amphetamines. So here's the difference between amphetamines and methamphetamines. So whenever you see something, or they're saying something about meth heads or meth or cooking meth, they are kind of two different things, just like crack cocaine is different than cocaine. With methamphetamines, cooked almost anywhere using ammonia, nail polish remover, lithium, hydrochloric acid. I mean, this is what people are ingesting into their body, is nail polish remover mixed with a bunch of other crap. Physicians don't ever prescribe meth. So somebody will not test positive for methamphetamines because it isn't testing separate. Methamphetamines test separate than amphetamines. Somebody that's positive for methamphetamines cannot tell you that it was Adderall. It's meth, separate. Physicians don't prescribe meth, ever. They smoke, swallow, snort, or inject it. Most common slang names: blue, crystal, meth, ice. Those are some slang terms. How to spot a meth lab. Not that you want to walk around your neighborhood looking for meth labs, but sometimes you might, the smell, the odor of your driver's clothes might kind of take a hint and be like, they're around a meth lab somewhere. So anyway, here's typically what a meth lab you might want to look for. Hoses hanging from windows, blacked out windows, chemical cans, drums such as Drano, pool acid, antifreeze, lye, ammonia. Anytime you go to a house, they don't have a pool or it's not filled up and they have a bunch of pool acid, you might want to think, why do they have that? Smell of solvents, mini stoves, hot plates, or blowtorches. They have to cook all this stuff and they cook it in a bunch of different pots. Lots of melted pots and pans. I imagine if they put all of this stuff in a pot, it's probably not going to do well for pots and pans. Excessive amount of cold medicines or weight loss pills. So back in the day, I think they stopped making them this way, but you could get those diet pills or cold medicine, and it had amphetamines in them. So they actually do use amphetamines to make methamphetamines, but it's like cutting cocaine. They use amphetamines and then they mix a bunch of other crap with it to make meth, because for one, it's cheaper and they can cook it at home. They don't have to get it from a pharmacy. Propane tanks, lots of propane tanks, red stain coffee filters, and just in general, visitors at odd hours, especially at night, like repeated visitors all throughout the night over and over and over again. That's not, maybe it is normal for some people, but combined with all those other things, and especially if a lot of the people look similar to some of these people, you might think, this becomes a problem. So I don't show you these photos. Now these photos are actually online. They're right online. I'm not trying to, for one, steal anybody's photos off of these, but it's more for, I want to show you what this does to people. And I feel really bad for these people because I don't think anybody wakes up one day and thinks, I think I want to be a meth head, or I think I want to be addicted to drugs or anything. This is in 6 months. And this is the reason I'm showing you these pictures. Because like I said, you want to pay attention to how your driver looks. That's why I really am proponent of doing in-person interviews and having somebody look at your driver on a regular basis, somebody who knows what that driver looks like, and that's where they go. I know it's hard for long haul freight companies because they might not see their drivers for months at a time. So it's hard to notice, did they look like that before or not? But this is in 6 months. This girl went from here, very clear skin, to this, and then to this. This is in 6 months what meth does to a person. This guy right here, he's got a pretty full face. He handsome guy. And then this is what meth did to him. This is 4 years later. These ones don't say the timeline, but if you can gather this is 6 months, it's probably that much, not that much time. Pretty girl. And then this is what drugs did to her. Same here. I mean, it's just not okay. This is not good. And I feel really bad for these people, but this is what you're looking for with drivers. You're looking for 1 month they look like this, and then you look at them one day and you think, wow, you don't look good at all because they look like this. You might start suspecting at that point meth. SpongeBob, have to say, not good. So the effects of methamphetamine, they're similar to amphetamines. So meth is pretty similar. It's stronger and faster. It impairs your speech, rapid pulse, constipation, dizziness. That's the general effects. What to look out for you on your side. You're looking for dilated pupils, hyperactivity, twitching, facial tics. If you see a lot of this kind of movement, and I know I look pretty idiotic doing that, but you see that a lot where people, when they start doing that, that's stuff you have to pay attention to. Why are they doing that? Some people have a legitimate medical reason for doing that. But if you have been watching them for the last 6 months and they were a regular weight and they look totally normal, and now all of a sudden combined with some other things, they're making those weird facial twitching or tics or jerky movements, might make you kind of wonder. Noticeable and sudden weight loss, tooth decay from long-term use, skin sores, burns, particularly on lips and fingertips, outbursts or mood swings. Start paying attention to how your employees look or how your people look. It matters. It doesn't necessarily mean that if they have 1 or 2 of these things, they must be a meth head. That's not true. But as we go through this in the training, I'm going to show you this is how you decide whether it's reasonable suspicion or whether, you know, maybe you just don't like the person, whatever. But you document things and you use a system. So we're going to show you that. But first, we're going to continue to go through the list of all the drugs that they test for. So MDMA or MDA. So the effects of MDA are short-term side effects that can cause nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, lowered appetite, euphoria, and sense of well-being. Longer-term side effects can include erectile dysfunction, anxiety, muscle tension, memory loss, headaches, and depression. So if you're using MDA and you're a male and you're proud of the fact that you can have intercourse, you might want to stop. Considered more psychedelic or hallucinogen than a stimulant. Users report a much more intense visual high, seeing tracers and other visions of side effects. It is associated with a heavier body high and energy that lasts up to 6 hours. So yes, MDA is an amphetamine, but it's also a hallucinogen. So it's not good. It's just not good. MDMA is a little bit different. So this is like MDA is Molly, ecstasy. That's what MDMA is. Its short-term side effects can be nausea, lowered appetite, vomiting, euphoria, decreased negative emotion, reduced insecurity and feelings of well-being. Longer-term side effects can be depression, anxiety, increased negative emotion, and insomnia. Considered more psychedelic than stimulant. Like I said, MDMA is ecstasy or Molly. It's associated with more of a lovey high that doesn't last quite as long. That's why people, you know, when they go to rages, they take ecstasy, and Molly is, you know, they think it's love and all that stuff. No, it's basically you're just tripping. The signs of a possible overdose. And I say this because whenever somebody takes meth or cocaine or they're smoking pot, not with pot, can't really overdose on pot as far as I know, but with the other stuff, You know, there's usually like a progression. Can they overdose the first time? Yes, they could. These, however, MDMA, MDA, there is a higher probability of like overdosing the very first time, like dying the very first time you ever use it. So loss of consciousness, faintness, seizures, panic attacks, high blood pressure, these are signs of possible overdose. Let's talk about opioids. This is one of the biggest problems in the United States right now. I feel like opioids, so OxyContin, hydrocodone, prescription drugs, starts with prescription drugs, it really does, and then it turns into heroin use. A lot of people think, oh, they're a drug addict, they must be shooting drugs, and they're horrible people. Most of them started out taking a prescription from their doctor, and I think it's a real shame. And then once the doctor stopped prescribing because they realized they screwed up by prescribing all these pills to these people, now the people go to heroin because that's what they can get on the street. Opioids are a class of drug that include heroin, opium, morphine, hydrocodone, fentanyl, codeine, oxycodone. Commonly found in prescription pain medications like OxyContin, Vicodin. Variety of forms, pills, and colors. Estimated 4.5 million people are addicted to opioids. 4.5 million people are addicted to opioids. Highly addictive, both physically and psychologically. Tendency to transition from prescription opioids to heroin due to the lower cost and the ease of obtaining it. So here's the short-term physical effects. Drowsiness, slowed breathing, constipation, unconsciousness, nausea, coma. Can somebody go into a coma the very first time they use opioids? Possibly, yeah. I mean, if you take too many, if your doctor prescribes one pill and you take 3 because you think your back hurts extra, you could potentially go into a coma. Long-term effects, physical dependence and addiction. That is no joke. Body adapts to the presence of drugs. Withdrawal symptoms occur if use is reduced or stopped. Withdrawal symptoms may include restlessness, muscle and bone pain, insomnia, vomiting. Tolerance can occur, so users will gradually have to increase dosage to achieve the same results. So maybe they injured their back. And this happens a lot with drivers. I have to say this happens a lot because they're sitting all day. So they do something, they injure their back, and now the doctor prescribes them opioids to get over their back pain. So here pretty soon, they go to their doctor, they get their prescription, and the doctor says, just take one. Take one whenever your back hurts. Well, it takes a while for your back to stop hurting. So now the driver's taking one pill, his back, and then here pretty soon he starts feeling okay, so he comes back to work. But he's still on the opioids because at nighttime, the back still hurts. So he's still on these opioids, which can't be driving while taking opioids in the first place. If it is prescribed, it has to be very regulated. But he can't actually be actively on the opioids while he's driving because it impairs their judgment, it impairs their driving ability. But here pretty soon, after a couple of weeks, now the driver is still in pain, and now they take 2 pills because then it actually works again. It stops working. They get used, their body gets used to those pills, so then they take more, and then they take more. And in their mind, they're like, oh, I'll just take it until my back stops hurting, and it's pretty quick. I've seen it happen with people pretty quickly where they get addicted to that. Like I said, I don't take any kind of drugs. I don't take pills. I don't do any kind of drugs. My pupils are small, obviously. But I was very sick for a while, and I had to take opioids, and I noticed my body starting to tolerate it, and I stopped. I went to my doctor and I said, absolutely not. You need to give me something else because I'm not going to be one of those statistics that get addicted. So, and then I just started going to physical therapy and had to work through it. So I just didn't want to be that person. So some people, they don't pay attention to their body as much. So pay attention whenever your driver hurts himself, hurts his back, is on a leave of absence, of what they're doing after the fact. Because that's a lot of times how you'll figure out that they're doing something, because it's very hard to tell. The behavioral effects are poor coordination, drowsiness, shallow or slowed breathing rate, nausea, vomiting, constipation, physical agitation, poor decision-making, abandoning responsibilities, slurred speech, sleeping more or less than usual, mood swings, euphoria, irritability, depression, lowered motivation, anxiety attacks. This is just a few of the behavioral effects. That doesn't mean you're going to notice that. People who get addicted are very good at hiding it. So things that you might notice as an employer is you might notice, for one, the eyes. If normally their pupils were, a certain size, and now all of a sudden they're always dilated, then being very quiet. So maybe somebody was always very talkative before. They like to have conversation. They used to come and sit and hang out with you in the office. And now all of a sudden they're very reserved, don't want to have conversations. Either they don't like you anymore, or people kind of regress whenever they're hiding things. So pay attention to things like that. Sometimes it's just a matter of you find stuff in their truck. And that's how a lot of times it is found. If people complain about money all the time, money problems all the time, they're constantly broke, even though they make a very good wage. And other people in your company are either they're very poor with money or they spend their money on something. But most of the time they will complain constantly about they're broke, they don't have any money, they need money, can they get an advance, things like that. It's really not your business if they're just bad with money. My personal opinion is if people are that bad with money, refer them to somebody that can help with the money, like Dave Ramsey. I think that's probably a good idea. Okay, hallucinogens. Let's talk about hallucinogens because some of these are not illegal. So this stuff you buy at a store. You can buy this stuff. It's, a lot of times it's synthetic marijuana. It's the MDA stuff, or it's the synthetic marijuana, or it's a frog that you can lick and get high from because it's got poison on it. Mushrooms, LSD, peyote, things like that. So we're going to talk about hallucinogens, even though the only one they actually test for is PCP, which I think is very interesting. They only test for PCP. PCP and hallucinogen facts. PCP and other hallucinogens are very dangerous and can cause irrational, panicked, and violent behavior. Hallucinogens are a diverse group of drugs that alter a person's awareness of their surroundings as well as their own thoughts and feelings. They are not themselves. People on PCP are not themselves. Commonly split into two categories: classic hallucinogens such as LSD and dissociative drugs such as PCP. So there's LSD and then there's PCP. Like I said, what the DOT with the FMCSA actually focuses on is PCP, which to me is interesting because drivers on bath salts act like crazy people. They might as well be on PCP, but they don't test for bath salts. So synthetic and natural, there's LSD, PCP, and then there's mushrooms or peyote. It can be swallowed, chewed, or smoked. So LSD is acid, dots, mellow yellow, blotter acid. Those are the slang names. PCP, angel dust, hog, ozone, rocket fuel. Ketamine, special K, cat, Valium, date rape drug. That's what the date rape drug is. It's actually ketamine, which is a horse tranquilizer. 251, N-bomb, the N-bomb, 251. DMT is Dimitri. So whenever you hear, most of the time you're not going to hear people being like, hey man, let's go get some LSD or let's go get some PCP. They're going to be using slang terms. They're going to be like, hey, what'd you think of that rocket fuel? Or psilocybin is smoke, magic mushrooms, shrooms. Peyote, buttons, cactus, mesque. Salvia, diviner's sage, Sally D, magic mint. Salvia is a hallucinogen. So Aya, Yagi. So the physical effects. Hallucinations, distorted perception, including visual, auditory, bodily, and time and space, increased heart rate and blood pressure, irregular heartbeat, palpitations, nausea and vomiting, increased body temperature and sweating. It may alternate between really, really hot and then really, really cold, or if it's a female, they can just be going through menopause. Brain damage, so don't think that just because they're hot or cold, back and forth, that they are whatever. You get my picture. Disorganized thoughts, confusion, and difficulty concentrating, thinking, or maintaining attention. Anxiety, agitation, paranoia, feelings of panic, loss of concentration and memory, feelings of euphoria, sense of relaxation and well-being. Can experience several different and intense emotions at once. So they can go from being super happy and bouncing around and all that stuff to immediately screaming in the corner, terrified because they see something that's not there that's trying to get them. If you see that kind of behavior, any of these kind of behaviors, you might not necessarily see the physical effects, like you don't know that they're hallucinating, but when you start seeing this kind of stuff, this might give you reasonable suspicion. I will say, if you suspect somebody is on a hallucinogen, don't approach them. Just call the cops. I know most people don't want to be that person. Most people don't want to be, you know, a snitch or whatever. But if you try to approach a driver, and you might say, hey, can I have your keys? And maybe they'll give them to you, maybe they won't. If they're on PCP, which is what the FMCSA is testing for, they get agitated very, very quickly. And I ain't going to do it. Me personally, I ain't going to do it. And I wouldn't blame you if you didn't do it. I would just immediately call the local police and have them deal with it, because that's what they're trained to do, is deal with people that are on hallucinogens like that. Okay, so with the behavioral effects, just be careful what you're looking for on that, and I would definitely contact local police. So this is, if you look at this GIF, this is somebody actually on some kind of hallucinogen, but it's going to affect their mind a different way. So if you just watch this, they're firing at this person several times, and they just keep on going. So here's another thing to look for. Look at the eyes. So this one is regular size, and then this one is totally dilated. That's something like this. Bath salts, any questions? I don't think you have any questions. This is just nuts. So, like I said, I don't use any of these photos. These are not my photos. I get these either off of YouTube. I try to give credit to whoever put them out here. It's a shame that this is what is going on. So this is why you call local police, though. If you have any questions, email me at info@readyfordot.com. You can go to our website, DOT Readiness Group. Go to LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, subscribe, because anytime I put a ton of free content out there, as well as trainings like this. So whenever I do the free content, if you subscribe to our social media, you'll get notified that we actually have free content out there, of course. So make sure you set it for notifications. If you're interested in going digital and doing all this stuff digital, all your papers digital, including accident reporting, drug and alcohol testing issues, stuff like that, go to dot-ready.com and watch our demo. Schedule a demo through that website and watch the demo on the software to see what it can do and how it kind of relates to the drug and alcohol testing portions.